Hello and welcome to another video from English Matters. Today we're going to be looking at When We Two Parted, which is a love poem written by Lord Byron. As always with these videos, it works better if you have a copy of the poem and you annotate as we go through it. Also, I'll ask you to please subscribe to this channel. If these videos are helpful, please click the bell so you get notified of any future uploads. But more importantly, share it amongst your fellow students. So with no further ado, let's actually think about the poem. As I've said before, this works best if you actually annotate it as we go through it. So when we think about form, of course, because remember you're assessed on primarily on language, form and structure. The form of the poem, it's a lyric poem. It consists of 4 stanzas, and each stanza is an octet, consists of 8 lines. It also has, in terms of its rhyme scheme, it has an A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D rhyme scheme. It also employs a rhythm, a regular rhythm, and the rhythm is used effectively to emphasize certain sounds in this poem, like the harsh sounds of cheek, cold, colder, kiss. It's the fact that this stress falls on these sounds is supposed to emphasize the speaker's anguish, I think, a sense of loss. Structurally, what's also interesting about this poem, of course, is the way it plays with time. It consistently shifts between the past, the present, and the future. And this conflation of the past with the present serves to emphasize the fact that his feelings are the same, they haven't changed. Interestingly, with this poem, of course, there is a semantic field that's related to death. Lots of references to cold and death knell and things like that. Now, death was often used as kind of an analogy for the end of a relationship, the end of a love relationship. Yeah, and it's certainly done so in this poem as well. So let's think a little bit about context. Of course, the poem was first published in 1816. But Byron falsely attributed its writing to 1808, and he did this to protect the identity of its subject. Now, the subject of the poem was apparently Lady Frances Wedderburn Webster. Many scholars actually believe this to have been written in 1816 when Lady Frances was linked to the Duke of Wellington. Of course, Duke of Wellington, who was a famous victor at the Battle of Waterloo. And she was linked to him in a relationship that would have been seen as scandalous at the time. So the poem is highly autobiographical. It recounts Byron's emotional state following the end of his secret affair with Lady Frances and his frustration with her. It's interesting to bear this in mind. If we bear this in mind, the poem takes shape and has a new meaning. Without that context, it would just come across as rather vague. The sex of the lover nor the beloved is actually revealed, and the poem provides no clue at all regarding time, place, or other setting of the poem, beyond it being a place with morning dew is about the only reference we get. So the poem begins in a tone of sort of bleakness and despair. Byron's poetry often would employ a sense of emotional turmoil, I think. I mean, there was the Byronic hero, which was a dark, brooding figure, which would become very influential in Victorian literature as well. Notably, Charlotte Bronte employs the Byronic hero when she wrote the character of Rochester, of course, and Emily Bronte, of course, when she fashioned the character of Heathcliff. They certainly had the Byronic hero in mind. So when we think about the first 2 lines, when we two parted, we, the pronoun there, the collective pronoun, is a direct address to both of them. The effect of this, and remember you have to write about the effect of the language, is it makes the poem feel more personal in many respects. It has a very intimate feel to it. In silence and in tears. Now, silence could just mean quietness, or it could simply mean not speaking, not saying anything, which very much underlines the secrecy surrounding this relationship. The next line, half broken hearted, is quite interesting. It's a little bit vague in terms of what it means. It could mean that they weren't fully in love with one another, perhaps. It it could possibly suggest that he is broken-hearted and she isn't. It would certainly link into the ideas of coldness and death that is hinted at it in this poem. The lovely compound adjective we get there, broken-hearted, is quite interesting as well, and it certainly helps establish the specific atmosphere of this poem. To sever for years, sever has a violent sort of quality to it, and it certainly looks at the nature of the breakup of this relationship. To sever for years, pale grew thy cheek, and colder thy kiss. Note that sort of, so notice the very harsh sound of cheek, colder kiss, and the stress falls on these words as well to emphasise that sound. It emphasises the harshness of the breakup in many respects. To sever, as I've said, is quite a violent word. It all links to a very traumatic experience for him. So if we come to the next two lines as well, truly that hour have foretold, to this, that hour past, this present. The past and the present is linked by the enjambment of the line, and it reveals a certain degree of emotional trauma that he obviously, from that time to this, he is still not recovered from. Then we get to the next stanza. The dew of the morning sunk chill on my brow. The morning dew, the chill on his brow has, again, it links into images of coldness, even death in many respects, metaphorical death, the death that is analogous to the death of a relationship. But it has a very sort of a tactile feel to it, because the emphasis is on coldness. There's also an emphasis on secrecy as well. It felt like the warning of what I feel now. Again, we get that enjambment linking the past to the present. He's talking about how he felt in the past to how he feels now, very much rooted in the present, that he is still very much traumatized by the destruction or the breaking up of this relationship. And then we get the next two lines, and the light is thy fame, and 1, 2, 3. Then we get the next few lines, and light is thy fame. Light can have connotations of being kind of weightlessness, in the sense that there's no substance to her, perhaps he's saying, but light maybe is thy fame, maybe light is the very bright and unblemished is her public reputation. It's interesting here with the next part of the poem. I hear thy name spoken and share in its shame. It's interesting, of course, that he shares in the shame because he was obviously involved in this relationship. But you get that beautiful repetition of the sh sound, which links thematically into the idea of silence and being quiet. Shh. And thy, again, it's that direct address. I hear thy name spoken, they name thee before me, a knell to mine ear. Now he hears her spoken about. Obviously she's probably quite a scandalous individual, but the pronoun is shifted from we, which is very personal, to they, which is very impersonal. So we're getting that shift from the personal to the impersonal here. They name thee before me, a knell to mine ear. We get that very knell as a death knell. Here it's like the death of a relationship. A shudder comes over me. I mean, now a shudder in terms, it could be almost have a kind of a sexual sort of connotations that links to the passionate clinch of their relationship, but also a deathly sort of feel to it as well. It's something that links into the idea of coldness and the death of a relationship and dread. Why wert thou so dear? Obviously it's a rhetorical question here. It emphasizes how much he felt for her. He's obviously still traumatized. He hasn't moved on from this relationship, but we certainly get the impression that she has. They know not. They, again, that pronoun, that I knew thee. He knows, but he has to keep secret in terms of the perhaps gentlemanly conventions of the time, that he must keep her secret. Who knew thee too well. He understands her too much. There's a sense of bitterness there, I think, isn't there? And we get that repetition, long, long. That repetition emphasises this point. Shall I rue thee? Rue is a sense that he feels a sense of sorrow or regret, too deeply to tell. Now we get the last stanza. In secret we met. I mean, this links very much to the need for secrecy in the whole poem. In silence I grieve. Of course, nobody in silence, it means because nobody knew they were lovers, because you get that link between the past and the present again. Past, in secret we met, but it's linking it to the present. In secret we met, in silence I grieve. In secret silence I grieve. It's linking the past to the present again. And obviously the repetition of the word silence links us all the way back to the very first stanza, where silence is mentioned then. And I grieve. Grieve, it's again terminology we usually associate with death, of somebody dying. I grieve that thy heart could forget, thy spirit deceive. Very bitter, accusatory sort of language here. Forget, deceive. There's almost a tone of anger to it. If I should meet thee after long years. So now he's switched from the past to the present, as he always does throughout this poem. Now he's linked, quickly switched to the future. If I should, it's the conditional. It's the conditional. If I should meet thee after long years, how should I greet thee? And he answers his own question with silence and tears. Again, that repetition from stanza 1 emphasises secrecy, but also sorrow, and emphasises that sense of pain, that sense of embitterment, that he's unable to move on from this relationship. A great poem. It's an interesting poem. If you're asked to write about this in the exam, I mean, you could think about themes of sort of loss, death, a relationship ending. You could link this poem, if you were to write about it, you could link it to neutral tones. The narrator is also affected, of course, by the loss of his lover, and expresses this in terms of death. So neutral tones by Thomas Hardy would be an excellent companion to this one. Or even the poem Walking Away, which also comes to terms of a painful memory, and this is all about a painful memory as well. So anyway, I hope you found this useful. Please, as I say, click like, subscribe, share this video, and stay tuned for the next one. Thank you for watching.